Welcome to a Drop Tent Media production.
Seriously, Dad? Seriously?
Today on Seriously Dad, we have the Joe Matarese. You've seen him on Howard Stern. You've seen him on America's Got Talent. But today, you're going to see and or hear him on Seriously Dad. We're going to be promoting his new special. Wait till you hear about it. It directly relates to him and his son. We're going to talk a little bit about his daughter. It's going to be an amazing episode of just talking about dads being dads.
Seriously, Dad?
Seriously, Dad. Two father comedians out of Philadelphia. Seriously, Dad.
Dad? Seriously?
Dad.
Seriously? Seriously?
Welcome back to Seriously Dad. Today, we don't have in studio, but in spirit, we have the Joe Matarese in the
Joe
house.
Matarese.
America's Got Talent. Howard Stern. He's got 2 specials out and a 3rd one on the way. And dude, we're so glad you're here today. Thanks for being with us, Joe.
Well, thanks for having me. This is my first dad podcast. I'm excited.
Ours too.
Yeah.
No. Well, that's actually sort of we started this because we were going on the road together and just traveling around, and we'd always be talking about our kids, and we're like, oh, we should. Nobody ever talks about some of the stuff. Sometimes we're all supposed to know all the nonsense, or we're supposed to, but nobody ever talks about the real shit. So we're like, oh, we should rap about that. Find other comedian dads, and I really. Because your last special, I think, the one where your kids actually woke you up in the beginning of it and fed you your pills, that was your second one, right?
No, that was my first one.
That was your first one. And that one was, it just struck me. I was like, oh my God, we got to have this guy. We got to have this guy on. Because you didn't have kids till you were 40. Was it 40, right?
Yeah. Late.
And I had mine I had my first one at 30, and I thought I was late. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I grew up in an era where, you had kids and if you got married out of high school, like my parents, got married young. I mean, my wife's mom had her when she was like 18.
Well, what's the ideal age? What would you say if you had to talk to a younger version?
Now
what's the
different.
ideal age?
Now it's different because I wouldn't expect my daughters. I would expect my daughters to go out and figure out what they're going to do in the world first. It's a different world. It's not like 1950s housekeeping,
right?
Anymore.
So you think older is better? You think older is better?
I'd say yeah.
30?
Go live a life and see what.
I think 30 is probably a good number. I think I had 30. I'm about 30s when I became a father, but I think 30 is a pretty good number.
I think older is better too, but I do notice that when you go to, like, as a comedian, you're on the road. Like, if you go to cities, people wait longer, but when you go to
country,
they're like, yeah, I already have a kid, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, but by the time they get 30, they're on 9. They're like, oh yeah, they start families earlier. That's for sure.
Yeah, they just do. I don't know. And another place like that was, believe it or not, was Israel. I got to do comedy at this tour. This comedian Avi Lieberman does like 2 or maybe even 3 times a year.
Nice.
And he does it in Israel, and one of the only places I've been to in the world where very attractive people get married young and have kids. Like, the Israeli people are very family oriented, and like, it's one of the reasons I love the place. It seemed I've had that happen another time too when I opened for Sebastian Maniscalco. I opened for him like on this like stadium tour he was on, and I remember opening for him at the Wells Fargo in Philly, 18,000 people. And nice. I came off, and like after the show, I go, dude, I love opening for your crowds are great. And in that Sebastian voice, he just goes, they're all family. They're all family. He goes, they're family people. And I was like, that's what it is. It's like when you get, I've noticed that as you get older as a comedian, like, and even when you go to other countries, all you got, if you bring up family, no matter where you are, they can relate,
Family comedy. It usually always goes over.
Oh
well.
my God.
It usually always works. It's especially if people have families.
And I still say I miss that when we grew up, there were funny shows on TV that you'd watch with your mom and dad.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And now
primetime TV.
nothing like that anymore. I don't. My kids like wave me out of the room if they're watching a movie with their friends, and there's no sitcom that comes on once a week where we want to sit down and watch it.
It's streaming. It's YouTube. I mean, my kids are, YouTube. They're watching all clips on demand now.
What were you watching? What show were you watching?
Well, when you think of growing up, what show was on that you guys were watching?
Well, the weird thing is I'll show them to my 11-year-old daughter sometimes, and they still hold up. Like I watch them as an adult, and I go, I'm still enjoying watching this episode of Who's the Boss? Or
yes,
like I didn't even realize how good Tony Danza was. So I started rewatching it now. I go, he's nailing it.
I love that show. That was always like, and there was
did you say Roseanne?
I loved Roseanne.
Roseanne was a great one.
I mean, the Cosby Show, that was one. Well, Black Household, we watched the Cosby Show.
I love the Cosby Show.
Yeah, like that was a huge one. When I still remember the episode where Stevie Wonder was on the Cosby Show, and like you were like, "Oh my god!" Like I'm watching it with my mom and dad on an old Sony Trinitron TV, one of those like freaking. I still remember the Sony Trinitron,
and I can see the set in my head, like where the door is, the stairwell in the back, the flip door into the kitchen, the couch right there.
It's committed to memory.
And we were basically where the camera was, where the TV was. Yeah. I'll never. That Full House was like
Al Bundy was a killer. Married with Children. That show was great. I love that.
Those were like anti-family shows, but yet they were so relatable.
That's what I was gonna say.
You know what I mean? Like
that was for the kids who didn't have it.
That's what I watched. You watched that one. You grew up with a broken family.
I watched that, and I was like, I get him. I get all these characters actually,
dude. Oh my god.
I remember it was one time in college, man. I'd smoked some weed by myself. I don't know why I was so alone for this story. But I smoked some weed by myself. And I remember sitting in the suite room, and I guess it was Nick at Night. I don't even know if that's still on, but it was like a Three's Company marathon. And I was just dying the whole time. I was just dying the entire time. And it's true. It's like, wow, this shit is still funny. I remember watching it when I was younger, and I don't think I was even picking up all the innuendos and all the other stuff that was in there. But that shit had me rolling, man. I was like, this stuff is great.
I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and they did like Car 54, Where Are You? Like old school Nick at Night stuff. That doesn't hold up.
I don't even know that.
Golden Girls with my mom and stuff. We did watch. Yeah, I would watch Golden Girls with my mom, my sister. Still funny.
Yeah, they had the Golden
I actually took an acting class. This is a crazy coincidence. You said Three's Company. Larry, remember Larry?
Yeah.
Larry, let me think if I can think of Larry's real name, because that's his character on Three's Company was Larry. Do you remember it?
Neil's going to look it up.
We're going to get that answer real soon, bro.
I should know. Richard
Klein.
Richard Klein. That's it. I took acting class from Richard Klein for like 2 years.
No shit.
Yeah, it was just so funny. I go, I can't believe I'm learning acting from Larry. This is so great.
I remember watching like I Dream of Jeannie. I mean, those are even older ones. Like I Dream of Jeannie. Lucille Ball was fucking hilarious. Yeah. Right? Was that I Love Lucy?
Yeah.
That show was great.
Yeah.
I love that show.
You get early physical comedy, some early.
Yeah. It is sad that you don't get to share that connection with your kids now. Like still my dad and I are tight. Like we're really good. Like we're like friends now. Like as I'm a 55-year-old man, my dad's 80. Yeah. We still share like old Johnny Carson's. We're always watching them and laughing, and like old Rodney clips, Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh yeah.
We used to watch comedy. I know that's why I'm a stand-up comedian, because they always say guys want to impress their dad, right? So if your dad loves baseball, you want to be a baseball player,
right?
Like, all that. My dad loved laughing, and I can just always hear him in my head, like just like in the other room, you'd hear, ha ha, you know,
right? Yeah.
Go in and go, what are you watching? Like, oh my god, Don Rickles. Oh my god.
Yeah, we had I'm with you. Me and my dad are very tight. He's like my best friend, you know. I remember that last summer we were driving up to Vermont to see his dad, my grandfather, and we were listening to old Rodney clips, just dying in the car, like almost getting that, you know, because he's driving. He's getting old. He can barely drive. Like cars swerving a little bit, and we're just dying. And that is, whether you're like 12 or like 25 or like 55, that's a great moment. Laughing with your old man, and just, you know, laughter is great.
I don't have that with I can honestly say I don't have that with my 15-year-old son. Like we don't ever. If I try to get him to watch comedy with me, he's got about a 3-minute attention span.
Yeah,
they can't hang. He did. What was it? He did watch about 15, 20 minutes of Chris Rock's last comedy special, the one he did live on Netflix.
Yeah.
And my son was laughing a lot at that.
Nice.
Like, he has sophisticated, good comedy taste, but I can't get him to sit down. Like,
does he know that you're funny?
Does he?
Like, does he think that you're funny? Does he know that you are a paid funny man across all over the world?
Well, that's what's interesting, because you hear like musicians always say their kids don't think they're good at, like, Springsteen always talks about how his kids don't like his music. But my son constantly, like, he'll be like, "Oh, that clip you posted yesterday, hilarious." Like, he'll tell me.
That's cool.
He knows which ones are funny, and then like other ones is weird, because there's like, I've been doing stand up for over 30 years, so he'll pull a clip that's talking about me hooking up with 2 girls at the same time from like 1994. And it's like, he goes, "Did that really happen?" And I'm like,
yeah. How did you answer that?
No, that didn't happen. No.
I had one of my students the other day, point blank, looked me in the face. It was like, "Mr. Yoder, are you a comedian?" It's like, "No," and we moved on with the lesson.
Do you think someone tipped him off, or do you think?
Yeah, because I'm doing a fundraiser event on Thursday at Soul Joel, so they got me promoted all
You're
over
getting
the
too
place.
big, buddy.
Yeah,
You're getting too big of a name, man.
Anymore, bro.
Those kids you're gonna be all over TikTok soon.
I know they're gonna be following me soon. It's gonna be scary.
I
don't. Well, that's at that point. I was afraid that I'd put something out, because you were an accomplished comedian for half of 15 years before you had your first kid. So you were, did you ever think you were gonna be a dad?
No, to be honest, I didn't think I was ever. I mean, this is a story I've told a lot of times, but like, I was a New York City comic, had some big stuff happen in my career that made me move to Los Angeles to try to, be really hands-on. I had a development deal with NBC, and we wrote a whole pilot for a sitcom that was all about my life back then, which was like a single guy who really wants to get married, but just can't find the right woman,
Nice.
And that's what the whole sitcom was about. And I moved out there, and then the sitcom never got on the air. I got to keep the money, and I had a little bit of it left because I was living off of the money for like a while, and my younger brother goes, "How much money do you have left?" It's like that scene in Rocky. "How much money you got left?" I remember that in Rocky too. "How much money?" He goes, "Taxes kill you, Rock. Taxes kill you." That's what happened. I was like, "I got this much left." He goes, "You should buy an apartment in Hoboken." I go, "I've never even been to Hoboken." He's like, "I'm telling you, you'll make money on that. It's an up and coming area. It's right outside the Lincoln Tunnel. You can go in and out of New York City very easily. You should buy an apartment there." So I did. And if you've ever been to Hoboken, it's all bars, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh my God, there's all bars. There's beautiful girls walking all over the place." I'm like, "This is great." Because that was the other thing, is when I was in LA, I was like, if I stay in LA, I'll never get married and have kids, because none of these women were potential mom types. That they were all actresses. You couldn't find anyone who was just some normal person, right?
Yeah.
I seemed like the guy who had his shit together, and I was like, "That's not a good sign."
He's like, if I'm the
You're
moral
the most
compass,
mature guy in the room.
I can't be the organized one. We're screwed. So I moved back, buy that apartment, because my brother tells me, and within like a month, I meet my wife.
Nice.
I get set up with her. I had 2 coincidental things happen. I had a cousin who I never met in my life. He was a third cousin. He looked me up because he was dabbling in stand-up comedy, because he was getting his PhD from Drexel, as you guys know, because you're Philly guys, Drexel.
Drexel.
And he said, "Can I want to meet you. I want to pick your brain about comedy." And we ended up hitting it off. We became friends. Like, he came to one. I go, "You're my cousin? This is crazy," right? So, "You're doing comedy a little bit?" He's like, "Well, I'm a motivational speaker, but I make my talks have comedy in them. So I want to really work the comedy muscle and, do comedy." So he started opening for me on gigs,
Nice.
and he was studying to be a neuropsychologist. So all the car rides were like therapy, right?
Wow.
He's coming with me on gigs, and I'm like, dude, I just want to meet somebody. I'm 35 now. I'm thinking in my head, I was thinking that felt so old. 35 and still single. Oh my God, I don't have a chance at meeting somebody.
There were no apps then.
No apps. Yeah, you're right. You couldn't speed up the process.
No,
Yeah.
the app was the blind date process. That was the app. You had to hope that whoever was
Speed
setting you
dating.
up was cool.
Right? Speed dating. But I don't know anyone who actually did a speed dating.
Yeah. And then friends. Yeah. Meeting them through friends. And hopefully your friend knows what you like and isn't a fucking asshole.
Well, that's actually what happened. So he does a gig at Caroline's, and I'm there, and I see this woman who's attractive, and I go, do you know her? And he goes, she's my cousin too, right? But
One of those,
but not blood relative of me at all, right? And he asked her if she'd want to go out with me. And I wasn't on that night. I didn't do comedy. It was just like, she just had to go by my appearance, right?
Okay.
So she just looked at me. She didn't even meet me. And she said, not interested, to Matt, right? And it's like, this like shattered me. I was like, I don't even get, like, you don't even want to meet me. You don't even want to talk to me. I get a no. I go, what kind of guys is she into? And my cousin goes, well, did you ever watch that show Seventh Heaven? I go, no, I've never seen that. I go, what, does she like guys that look like the lead actor on the show? And he goes, well, actually, her ex-boyfriend was the lead actor on the show. Right.
The kid at the high school, like the brother,
With the long
star of the
side?
show, I think.
Yeah.
He was this really handsome guy. And I go, oh, okay, I get it. All right. I'm not a model.
Yep,
I get it.
Seriously, Dad.
We'll be right back.
Seriously?
So then I do a show. Do you remember the Laugh House in Philly on South Street?
Yeah.
I did a show at the Laugh House. It's no longer there. And he came just to watch, because he was getting Philly. He's going to Drexel. He came to the show with his girlfriend, who's now his wife. And I have a real good set. And I leave. So about a week later, he goes, you know what I'm thinking? I'm like, what? He goes, maybe we should set you up with someone who's seen you do comedy, because they'll like you if they just see you on stage, because you got so much charisma on stage. You're so funny. They're going to like you if they see you do comedy. I go, well, that's been my crutch, my whole comedy. You know how many girls I've met after shows?
Yeah.
A lot.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't really want that. So cut to, he contacts me, and there was a woman at the show who saw me do comedy that night he was there, and they approached her because she was going to Drexel also with them, and she was in their PhD program. And they said, what you think of the show? You were there. We saw you there. And she goes, yeah. How did you know the comedian? I saw you talking to him. And he goes, believe it or not, it's my third cousin. She goes, oh, he was really funny. We had a good time. And just that little nugget of, oh, he was really funny, we had a good time, made him go, maybe we should ask her if she'd want to go out with you, or even maybe just meet you or talk to you or whatever. So his wife, or who's his wife now, was his girlfriend then. She was more of the matchmaker. So
they're like your love management team.
Yeah. Yeah. So his wife went up to her at Drexel one day and said, would you be interested? He's single. Are you single? And she was like, she had just broke up with somebody. And that, I always say that too. Like, a woman has to be like there's a certain, like, if a girl's 25, I think she's too young to want to get married. Cause I had a few different girls that I had serious relationships that were more than like 9 or 10 or 11 years younger than me. If they were like under 25, they weren't ready to settle down. They were like,
unless they're out in the sticks, right? That's the country girls.
Yeah. So she was 26. She was like right on the fence, right? So she goes, all right, I got nothing to lose. I'll talk to him. Give him my email address. This was before.
Oh,
My
shit.
email
Oh,
address.
shit.
Yeah, this is how long ago.
AOL
Yeah.
2.0.
Instant messages.
Not
AIM.
even instant messages.
Not even, yeah, she's like straight
It
email.
started as emails and then it went to long distance phone calls.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah,
they cost
sexy.
money to
You
talk.
had to buy the phone cards for those, right? Did you? Is that how you
my
did it?
God.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So we were hitting it off on the phone for like, we talked on the phone like 10, 12 times, right? Long conversations. I was like, I really like this girl. Like, so we set up a blind date. She knows what I look like. I got nothing except my cousin going, she's really pretty. He goes, and she's not going to be flaky. Like you've talked about all those girls you used to date that were flaky. This girl's getting her PhD and she's on her game. She's in my classes. This girl's very smart. She's about to defend her dissertation. This girl's like this is an A+ right here. And it's still so funny because he goes, and she's got my wife, I still tease her about this. He goes, and she's got a great onion. That's what he said. I'm like, is that what an Italian guy calls a great ass?
Yes.
Great onion. I go,
I mean, that is an
onion.
important piece of the. Yes, that's okay.
I was like, I'm in. That's all I
I'm
need.
in.
You could have said she has got she looks like a burn victim from the neck up, but her ass.
But you got that onion.
I'm in. I'm an ass man to the core.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
I'm with you on that one.
And now you've been married now how long?
17 years.
Wow.
And you got
Alright.
married, and you were like, "I want to get married and have a family," or you were like, "I'm just gonna get married and we're gonna go through life just being single and
Well, that was the other thing.
no
The
kids
girl-
and all that stuff."
The girlfriend I had before her, I was dated her for 8 years, and I'd say there was probably like 3 years that I was single when I met my wife. And what was always a red flag with her was she said, I never want to have kids. And I know that for a fact. I just don't want to have kids. And I'm going, I know I want to have kids. There's no way I want to never have kids. There's just no way.
Oh,
Seriously, Dad. Seriously. Seriously.
I was gonna say, so when you were the point where you and your wife now you're gonna get married, you've been dating a while. She knows you're a comedian. She's doing this PhD thing. Like at some point, like we had Mark Riccadon on a while back, and he's like, when I pitched my wife, I'm like, you're marrying a comedian. You need to know that. Did you guys have a conversation like that where it was like, hey, I'm a comedian. Sometimes I'm gonna be away. Like, how did you guys navigate sort of that?
I mean, one, I'm an established comedian. So that helped because I can remember having a serious 4-year relationship with a girl when I was in my early 20s, when I was a new comedian.
Yeah.
Mm.
And she hated that I was a comedian because she come to shows and I suck, but I'm a headliner when I meet my wife. I've been on tons of TV shows when I meet her. She goes, I didn't know if you were going to show up in a Lamborghini. I had no idea of what, like, you could be rich. I had no idea. Like, sorry to say, I showed up in a Nissan Altima, but it was completely paid off.
That's right.
I was doing colleges a lot at one point, and I was making a lot of money. I remember buying that car cash.
Nice.
But to say, did she know I was going to be going away? Well, what was weird is
I guess you already were then at that point. So
this was what was the curveball in the relationship. So I meet her when I move back, right? Now, when you get your PhD, you have to do an internship, right? And my wife was like, I'm not changing my plan here. I always wanted to do an internship in a city I've never lived in. I want to go somewhere new. And you have to match. It's called matching. Like
like the doctors do. Yeah.
Yeah. So she ended up trying to match it. Like she went to San Francisco. She went to Tallahassee. She went to Brown in Rhode Island. And she also went down to San Diego to UCSD Medical Center. So we're only dating 7 months, and she matches, and she really wants to go to UCSD Medical Center. She wants to go to San Diego. And she goes, will you move there with me? And I'm like, I was like, I wasn't sure I'm like, I just left LA. I hated it. Now, 7 months later, after I just bought a condo, I own it. It's a 2-bedroom condo in Hoboken. I own it. Now, here's the crazy coincidence. So my cousin who set us up he has to do his internship also, and so does his wife. And they both pick New York places. So they rent my apartment from me.
Oh, there you go.
And I go to San Diego, and my brother did not get it. My brother's 9 years younger. He was like, "Why are you relocating for a girl? That's such a pussy move." And I was like, "Dude, I'm not doing long distance. I'm reeling this one in. This girl's marriage material. I'm not blowing this." And I had been single long enough to know at 7 months in, I'm probably marrying this person. You know.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Do you, like when you're doing, you know, you're doing comedy, you're in these clubs and you're around a lot of different comedians and entertainers. Were you looking at other people going, man, I don't want to be that? And what I mean, because you seem very fixed on wanting to be married or wanting to be married at the time, which I think is great. But like, were you looking at people going, wow, this guy's, you know, 50 something, 40 something years old, got nothing going for no lady in their life, and their life's kind of like in shambles, and you're like, I don't want to really be that person. Was that what was like kind of how you were feeling?
There were comedy has changed. Back then, you didn't see a lot of really successful comedians that had marriages going on and good family lives like you kind of do now. Like Sebastian Maniscalco, Bill Burr, these guys all have wives and kids, and they're trying to be good dads. Like they're not assholes. Like when I was coming up, you were more either married and like not a very good comedian and barely trying to be a comedian. You just lived like there were a lot of those Philly comedians that I knew. They used to hate me because I left. I moved to New York. They all like got married young and they had wives already and they're doing open mics in Philly and they didn't have the option to go and pursue it as like a big dream. You know, they were doing. Most of them don't even do comedy anymore. There was like a few of us that like still do it and became really successful. But I'm trying to think here to get back on track. So I have to decide if I want to move out there. And to me, it's just like, it's like a no-brainer. So what made it also really hard is now I moved to San Diego. There's no comedy down there. And there's no paying gigs anywhere in California. Like you'll drive 2 hours from San Diego to some suburb city somewhere to make $50 if you're lucky in the anywhere from LA down to San Diego. Back then though, now there's probably 7 comedy clubs in San Diego. Back then there weren't any.
That's crazy.
They all went out of business. There was like, and if you went to the open mic, there was one comedy store in San Diego in La Jolla, and all the local comics, like you can always tell if like a city has a good comedy scene, like Philly does. There's good comics in Philly, Boston too. You go to Boston, you go to an open
I've heard
mic,
great things.
Yeah, and then you go, these guys are funny. But San Diego, I'm like, these comics suck. Every comic had the hat on backwards.
Oh,
and they were all like, yo, motherfucker, you know what I'm saying, motherfucker? Everything was dirty with the hat on backwards. I was like, is anyone intelligent here? It was kind of like what I said, where I didn't want to meet a girl that seemed like I had my shit together more than her. I don't want to live in a city where I seem intelligent.
He's like, again, I can't be the moral compass again.
No, I need, like, when I was in Philly coming up, I was intimidated. There were comics like Paul F. Tompkins, who was like, he was witty, he was intelligent and funny. There was this other guy who went on to win an Oscar.
Really?
Why am I forgetting his name?
Well, I think when you're on the court with the big players, it helps you amp up your game, you know?
Yeah. And I had been in New York too, and I'm seeing all these great comics, and then I'm in San Diego. So there's no comedy there, dude. So I didn't do the road. Well, if I did, I had to fly there, right? So I did that a little bit. I've never been a comedian that's like an A-lister that's at every club in the country. Like it's always been like sporadic. Like I would work some of the big rooms, but it was never every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It was like one Thursday, Friday, and Saturday a month. So what I did, I opened a comedy club when we lived in San Diego, and and then a year into San Diego, she did the internship. She's done, and we moved right back to Hoboken.
Okay.
And I proposed to her right before we moved back. So we're engaged. Now we're living in Hoboken in my apartment. Now it's great. I'm back in New York again and right at the comedy clubs, you know? So,
Yeah.
and then I end up selling that condo, making a bunch of money on it. It was perfect timing. My brother was right, as he always is.
Beautiful.
And I put that as a down payment in a house in Westchester where I live now. And typical PhD wife, though, because she's really smart at psychology, but dumb with money. The house that we put that money down on was in a really bad school system. And 6 years later, once we had our first kid and he was about to start kindergarten, we were like,
oh shit.
We can't put our kid in school here because the grammar school's good, but the middle school and high school are so bad that we might as well move now because we don't want them to make friends and then have to leave.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, that's important.
We lose all the money selling that house. We're back to even. We lost 150 grand. That's what I had to put down on that house. We lost 150 grand.
Damn.
And we're back to zero and we're living in the house that we live in now, which we should have bought a house in this city going in.
Originally.
Yeah.
Well, hey, hindsight's always 2020 at that point, but that's good. Like now, so now you're in a better environment. I was just talking to you the other day about your son's baseball game when we were kind of pre-interviewing for this, and we were talking a little bit about it last night too, because now, it seemed like you have this shared interest in baseball with your son, which is kind of cool, and that seems to be like a little bit about your thing. How's that been going?
Well, he's playing JV baseball. He went to private school. I think I told you that at our gig last night. He went to Fordham Prep for a year and he tried out and he was like on the fence because all his friends were going to public school. Right. Mm-hmm. So he's very popular. He's got I love that about him. And I like all of his friends. Like he doesn't have one dickhead friend where I'm like,
that's cool.
I fucking hate this kid.
I don't want that kid in our house.
Are you the cool dad when they come over? I bet you're the cool dad.
Yeah. They like me. They bust my balls nonstop because I'm ADD, right? And they know I'm ADD and they just laugh because I'm driving them all over the place and I'm always missing turns. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm ADD. I'm sorry."
I love dads like that. That was always it's just a good time.
So sometimes they'll tell me wrong turns just because they like to see
just
me
to fuck with you. Oh, that means they definitely like you.
Yeah,
because you don't do that to the dad you don't like. You don't do that to the
they're like,
dad.
get me to the location.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of me. Yeah. They're making reasons to be with you longer. You know what I mean?
And you're at all the games and shit, and you're making a lot of noise. You're a quiet guy. What do you do at the games?
I used to. You know what's funny is I take antidepressants now because I used to have a really bad anger problem.
Keeps you low key.
But I would still. I remember. I think I was on. This was classic. I remember being on meds and then switching the milligrams of my meds. And I went to one of his games. And now you're a baseball coach, so you'll relate. Yep. This was Little League. I've always I play baseball like my whole life. I feel like it's the one game that I feel very emotionally connected to it,
Yes, I understand.
So when I see a coach doing some weird shit, like it's hard for me to be quiet. So this guy used to be. You ever played on a team or watched Little Leaguers where the coach likes to do I don't mind the delayed steal, but this.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Where the pitcher throws the pitch.
As soon as the catcher's comfortably in that motion back,
they steal.
Boom, and it's always usually a first and third. We love to do it first and third.
First and third, it's normal. But this guy used to do it
just whenever.
One out. Your son's on third, and he's got a good hitter up, and he's trying to steal on a delay, right? And I'm like, what kind of baseball are you teaching these kids? You got a good kid up to bat. How about hitting him in like a normal baseball game? I go, if we were watching the pros, and I remember once I even sent the coach a text afterwards because I got livid at the game when he stole my son was out by like 8 feet. Right? It wasn't even close. The catcher had a gun. The pitcher was alert. The catcher was alert. You can't do that against good teams. They're alert. It was like he threw my son out and I go, we're losing 5-2 and you got a man on third. Like, this makes no sense.
It's like these carnival tricks. Yeah, I hate that too, because it's like, oh, we're beating up on a younger, like stealing a kid's lunch money. If you're playing a school that gets away with doing that, then you need to get in a better league, or you need to do something, because I hate that. I hate that.
Teach
stuff.
him. I always am like, teach him the right way. Don't teach him the wrong way. It'd be like if you had a school teacher and he taught your kid how to cheat really well.
Right? That's pretty much what I do. I will say, I did tell my kids last week, I was like, you guys, honestly, you got to cheat better. It's like, they don't like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I copied my friend's homework, but I didn't copy his name too. Like, they submitted a photo. They submitted a photo of their friend's work, and they couldn't even be bothered to crop out.
Are you serious?
Where he wrote his name at the top.
Damn, that's
and I'm like, just for the love of God, cheat better. A little integrity with your cheating is all, is all I require. You know what I mean?
You guys are never going to be the industry, like the head of Wall Street, being able to cheat at a high level if you keep cheating like this.
You know, I mean. But
most of adult life is cheating.
But but you're right. Teaching the integrity as a baseball coach for 18 years, like that was of the utmost. Even when I did the younger level, I ended up at assistant varsity for the school I was at. But I started seventh.
You worked your way up the ladder.
Yeah, I started at 7th, 8th grade. I mean, I was big into baseball. I was still playing. I was umpiring, and the worst part is the parents. Like, when you the parent you were in that moment. I've dealt with parents like that before, and I've had even ones that get so irrational. I had one guy come up to me before a game because I got a kid that was double rostered. So it means he was on the Junior Legion, but he was playing Babe Ruth when he wasn't, so that he could get some innings pitching. So he came to pitch. He didn't realize the kid was on my team, and he's making a scene in front of everybody before the game starts, basically telling his team he didn't think they were good enough to face this other kid. And he was making such a big deal. And I'm like, I'm on the third base, like waiting for my kid to get up to bat so I give him signs, and he comes up to me in the middle of, he's like, and he's just ranting and raving. I'm like,
this is the other coach?
This is the other coach. And I'm like, brother, relax. He's like, I'm not your brother. He starts screaming.
What is that about baseball? I mean, that is a sport that has the most craziest tantrum, like the most craziest flip outs is baseball. What is that?
It's because you have a passion. It's the game slow enough that you can digest what happened and get angry about what happened before the next thing happens.
Okay.
You know, and I had a 10U, I was umpiring 10U, like Father's Day, had to kick a father out of a game. And I think sometimes, like, you know, dads, I don't know if they're trying to overdo it sometimes. I don't know what the situation was, but I think
that guy wanted to go home on Father's Day.
Right, maybe he did. But I feel like sometimes, like, and I know, like, my dad was this, my dad wasn't around much, but every once in a while when he would show up at a game, he got kicked out. And he was like, because I think he wanted to show, I think he was like, this is my one opportunity
to show how
much I care, or be what I think a dad is. I don't think he.
I love you. Get your fucking hands off. Get your hands off.
I think he thought he was dadding so hard in that moment.
So hard, you know, and so right.
Like,
he was.
I've missed all of these opportunities. I'm gonna nail this one. You know,
I don't know your favorite color, but goddamn, you are not striking out for a third time today.
I forgot what your birthday was a few years in a row, but I am making up today.
You're on the sideline crying. The coach comes up to you. He's like, "Buddy, it's gonna be okay. I know your dad. It's, you know, I'm just so sad. I'm just so happy that he's so passionate."
It's intense. I mean, it is. Well, it's good that you're. It's.
Well, what did you do? What did Joe do? Wait, Joe, what did you just sent a text message?
That's what I was going to ask you.
That's not bad.
I like your producer. He knows how to keep it on. I like that.
He's good. That's why we keep him around.
I need you. I need you on my podcast when I finally start one.
No. But yeah.
I was about to tell you, I didn't just yell at the coach out loud. Shit. My problem is the coach's wife used to get she used to get very loud at the game and like critique your kid out loud. And I'm like, I'm allowed to yell and say shit about my kid, but
not someone else's.
You're not.
Yeah. I think general rule of thumb is leave the other kids alone.
Yeah.
I was always, that's why it was grateful for me, because I was always the opposite of that, because I didn't have a kid yet. I was coaching since I was like 21, 22. I really loved it. I wanted to see as far as I could go. And in this part of PA, we have some serious ball. Like my third or fourth year, we were state runners up. So like my first group of 7th graders when I first started went on to be the state runners up in 2009.
Congratulations, coach.
And that was really cool to see, because that was that first crop of kids. One kid gave me a concussion. We didn't have an L screen. And I was pitching, you know, I'm 22. I'm like, oh, I'm bringing the heat. This is great. I'm like, it's 7th graders. I'm like, we're working on line drives today. And I'm throwing 66. I'm like, I'm not moving up. I'm at the mound. And this kid that went on to be like the home run guy when he was like, just belted me right in the head. Boom.
Oh, wow.
Went down hard. And I popped right up because I was the only adult for these 30 kids.
Oh, that would have been horrible.
In this back area.
You're just
I
out
popped
cold.
up,
All the kids are like, oh,
I put a helmet on and I finished throwing BP. And then I went to Phoenixville because I had a concussion.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go.
But like,
you're committed.
well, I got hit today. So I got hit today, line drive in the chest. And I'm coaching a special needs team. And this girl was the home run derby champ last year.
Nice.
So she's not, her limitations aren't physical. So because when you do the challenger division of Little League, you can like it's just anybody developmentally delayed. So so she's like the one where I actually go back to the mound and I'm like, I'm throwing
the heat.
I'm throwing
Fucking wild thing.
and
Ricky
she
Vaughn over
just
here.
line drived it right in my chest.
Nice.
Now, thankfully, we play with the softer, but it stung. I'm not gonna
for
leg,
her.
and they got it on video, so we'll release
for
the
her.
clip when the mom
Send
got it
that
on
over.
video. So, but I don't know. I just, you know, I love the game so much, and I was not a dad. Now I am a dad on the team, but it's not a team that's competitive. So it's like, it's kind of nice. I get to just enjoy the game, and nobody's getting upset. Nobody's arguing with anybody, and it's just baseball. And it's like, and then the kids, it's like the teams from the Little League are our buddies. And it's cool for them because they get to play around, but then they're protecting these kids. They're helping kids like, you know, if they couldn't field the ball, they'll knock it down for them so that they can pick it up and throw it. And I went from this high edge competitiveness to like just coaching this kind of team. And I'll tell you what, I've never been happier. And I have my blood pressure must have been through the roof as a coach.
Oh, coaching will fuck your health up.
Because I wanted to be I didn't want the dads to have anything to say to me. So I was going to be handling, I'm breaking clipboards. I'm like, I was like Bobby Knight. I was like the Bobby Knight of coaching,
Nice.
you know, and sometimes it would get the best of me when I was younger. Like I had a temper, and then sometimes the umpires would come over, and I had one that like approached me, and he was actually got to me because usually I have a silver tongue and I'm really smart, so I can have something to come back. But he hit me hard about like, just think about what you're showing the kids right now.
These are children.
Yeah, or just like
He hits you hard.
Then you got quiet to yourself.
Yeah, and I was like,
and
he's right. I needed that. I needed somebody to say that to me because I think we all get to the level that, you know, meds or no meds. Like sometimes we all reach a level where we're just like, we're so passionate about something.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Brandon can field the ball.
Yeah, that's right.
Brandon, come on. Like,
Well, I told you guys I got a technical coaching 7th grade girls basketball once.
Yeah,
that should never happen. Just by the way,
insane.
ever.
That's probably the worst. That's probably the worst one.
But so
my,
now
my daughter plays softball now. She plays softball now. I stay away. If all the parents are sitting over there, I'm all the way over. Like, I don't want to be in the same hemisphere.
You know what the moms must be saying about this tall drink of water? They must be like, look at him over there.
Why does he always sit away from us? God damn it. Every time.
I don't know what they're saying because
I've IG'd him.
I don't talk to the dads or the moms. I just say the fuck away.
They're like, what do you think about that Joe Matarese over there? Honest look, okay, on stage, amazing.
Yeah, pretty good.
Parents at games get on my nerves. I can't. It's tough for me. It's very, very tough.
No, that's cool though. So now your son's playing. Well, what about your daughter? Is she 11? How old is your?
Yeah, she's 11.
Is she playing anything?
She's anti wanting to do anything that is organized. I think.
Okay.
I can whisper this. I always think when my window's open right now. This room I'm in, and I can hear a basketball bouncing, so they're outside. I think if I had to guess, this is like a fatherly guess, because I had a lot of fear growing up, and fear sabotaged me and made me quit things that I knew I loved because of fear factor or uncomfortability. You know, anyone who like I didn't, long story, but that's kind of how my baseball career ended in high school. Is I didn't know anybody on the team, and I felt uncomfortable. I had my appendix.
It burst?
It didn't burst, but I had to get a surgery done right before the tryouts for high school baseball. And the coach said, don't worry about it. When you heal up, you can come back and try out. I'll let you do that. But the team was already picked, and they had been practicing. They had been practicing for like a month and a half before I came back.
Yeah, and you were like, I don't want that shit.
And I came to the tryout, and they all like knew each other. They thought this was
I
fun.
know exactly. I know this. Oh my God. Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
kind of blowing my mind.
But you did it, right? Did you
Yeah,
stay? You
did you-
stuck around?
No,
and
he
did-
didn't. No, it's the
he
end
just-
of his career.
Wait, how far into this try did you stay for the tryout? And then
You got to listen to
afterwards?
this. So I come
Yeah.
to tryouts.
Yeah, listen.
I'm hitting the shit out of the ball in the first. I go to the tryout. At once I'm healed, I'm doing well, and all those kids all were calling each other. They all knew each other's parents' names, and they had these jokes about it. Be like, "Whatever, Steve." Oh, okay,
Oh, yeah.
Thomas. And I was like, "What are they talking?" And I felt so uncomfortable that I was like, "I'm not going back." And the next day I didn't go to the tryout. And the coach saw me in the hallway at school, and he goes, "What happened to you? You were doing great. What happened?" Like, he was basically saying, "You're going to make the team.
Yeah,
like, you're
right,
good."
yeah.
He goes, "What happened?" I go, "I'll be back. I'm sorry, I wasn't feeling well." And I
You never
let it
went
get
back.
the best of me. And I did the same thing with the school play, which is I knew that I wanted to perform. I was kind of interested in acting. I auditioned for the school play. I got a little part, and then I never went. Because you know what? I went once. Like I said, I went once, and everybody there had been in all the plays together leading up to that. They all knew each other. And I was like, I'm not like these people. They're all like, the guys are all effeminate. And I was like, I don't know.
Mhm.
And I quit. And I was like, I always give my dad shit. I go, "Why didn't you tell me?"
Right.
He goes, "There was no talking sense into you." And it's like, I get that now because I see that with my kid. Where it's like, I see my son, because my son did make the team, but I see him have struggles sometimes. And I'm like, if you would listen to me, we could correct what you're doing wrong, but you don't listen to me. I give you these ideas, and I've never seen you once try it in the game. Never.
What is it with kids with the
That's how it is.
they don't like to listen to their parents.
Well, even
You could tell him something, and then someone he doesn't know could walk up and go, "Hey, let me show you a couple things," and repeat what you said verbatim, and then he will listen to the other person.
He won't even listen to that. I pay a guy.
understand.
I pay a guy $100 an hour once
to
a
say
week,
what you say.
to
Who was-
repeat you.
and I tell him, I go, "Dude, if you can motivate my son, I'll have a line of people that'll want to pay you to work with kids in this town. You'll have a line of them. If you can get my son to have like a killer instinct and be really motivated to work and get better." I go, they play video games so much.
Oh my
that,
god!
like I can hear him outside right now bouncing the basketball. He should have a ball on a tee right now and hitting it into the net and working on keeping his hands up.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter, she does not like listening to the things I tell her. Like it's weird because I don't know what to do. Do you just like keep on trying, or do you just accept that like now we're almost arguing every time we talk? So maybe I'll just bite my tongue and like you can
gotta pick your
continue to do
battles.
it wrong.
Do you guys know who Chris Russo is? Famous sports announcer.
I do not.
I've heard. I feel like if I saw him,
They call him the Mad Dog. Howard.
Oh, the Mad Dog.
Howard used to have him on all the time. He probably still
yeah.
does.
Okay.
And Letterman used to have him
Yeah,
on all the
yeah,
time. Well, I heard him interviewed because he was saying, that his kids don't play sports. And he said, there's one thing you can't teach a kid, and it's to have that that instinct, that work ethic that they want, that ambitiousness. It can't be taught. It's like they either have it or they don't. Because I said, if it's not, I don't care if it's not. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be baseball. Just find passion.
No,
Yeah,
he's
find
really,
something that you
really
keep
into
up at night,
music.
yeah.
My son's really into music, and I'm like,
Oh, there you go.
I have a friend whose son used to be like a rapper, and he would produce all these really cool music videos. And I said, I wanted him to talk to my son because my son's into music. I go, you don't have to be a performer. You could be a producer. You could record. There's so many different things. You should at least, talk to somebody and see if, because he's at that age now. Because here's another thing we hired once is we talked to somebody who like about college, right? Where the guy's a guidance counselor at a high school, and he gets side money to try to, line your kid up. And it reminded me so much of when I used to teach stand-up, which I would say, you need to figure out who you are. You can't just go up there and tell jokes. We have to be able to know who you are. Yeah. You either tell them who you are, or by what your material's about, we can tell who you are. But there has to be a connection. Yeah. And I said that to my son, and that's what the guidance counselor said. Like, when you go into a college meeting, like it's got to jump off the page. Like we don't want to just see like, oh, you played baseball for a few years, but like, what are your interests? What are they? And what did you do to make that, a passion?
Yeah, that's it. We want that's the goal. The goal is to do that.
Well,
That's
I mean,
the hardest teaching job there is to be a guidance counselor.
Oh, yeah. Nowadays it's horrendous. It's honestly, I was just talking to a bunch after the show last night, and they were just like, it's just trauma. All they deal with is trauma now. They're not helping a kid get into an Ivy League school. They're dealing with suicide calls. Right? Yeah. They're dealing with I mean, it is like they don't even get to touch those kids. Like it's so sad.
Because that would be the greatest job ever if you could take a kid who was failing and then all of a sudden, by what you helped him with, all of a sudden he's going to Harvard, like that transformation.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Well, we see that with some kids. Like I always love the kids that the other teachers struggle with because, like, you make a connection with them. I like, and hey, even if my subject's not their thing, like I try to find out what their thing is, and you just show a little bit of interest, and sometimes that's all some of these kids want.
That is true. Just a little bit of it, like a tiny bit of interest,
or their opinion. Sometimes they want their opinion. They feel like they were being forced into something, or even if they're forced to take the language I'm teaching versus one maybe they really wanted to take. You can find some common ground and the appreciation that they'll still get something out of this, and then eventually. You have that. But I think, it'll be interesting to talk to you in a couple of years after your son's like 18 and he goes to college. For me, the transitions, I mean, our kids are younger, like mine are 6 and 9. So it's like, I like that, this world of what you're speaking of, I'm like soaking it all in. Cause I'm like, oh, even though it's a daughter, I'm dying to know like, what's her interest going to be? What am I going to try?
Yeah. She has a hair of an interest in golf. And like my daughter, I mean, my wife's very into sports. She grew up in a very sports family. Her dad is an avid golfer. He's very good. And I played a lot of sports growing up. And my daughter as a dad, when you take them to a driving range and you're like, you're hitting it like good, like right out of the gate. I'm like, most kids can't even make contact.
That's right.
You're not just making contact, you're hitting it straight up in the air and far.
My middle nephew
never touched a golf club in your life.
My middle nephew, same thing. Just touched the club, and he was on the team for high school.
But she
never played golf.
Do it though. It's what she doesn't. She'll go, no, I don't want. And I know it's the fear again. Like I don't want to be in a group. She's like, I'll go do it because she went with her friend, and her friend's mom and dad took them in the golf cart, and they played 18 holes, and she loved it. But she doesn't want to go, in a golf class and like learn it.
She doesn't want to get fully organized. That makes sense. Yeah. Well, hey, foster it. Like, hey, she's playing it. Like. That's cool. Like I'm looking forward in King of Prussia. They're opening up a Top Golf,
baby.
I can't wait because I feel like that's like a fun thing that like makes it digestible to someone who doesn't want to do that, and maybe that would be a fun night out. Or
my daughter loves those things. When you take her to Top Golf, she loves that.
Yeah, I can't wait.
My biggest fear as a dad is that my daughter becomes one of those girls with big boobs
on Instagram playing golf,
who's just hitting golf balls. You ever?
I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, I don't know. I've heard.
It's a genre. It's like hilarious. What are you looking at? I'm in the hot girl short shorts driving range section.
Let me tell you something. As someone who plays a ton of golf, once in my life I've seen like a very, very beautiful woman on a golf course. Once in my life. You're not out there. That shit isn't real. That shit isn't real. That shit does not exist.
Real. Natalie Gulbis, I think, is one of the ones on the tour that's sort of like
she hits the ball really far, doesn't she?
Also, you'd have to call that the Instagram handle to be golf and titties, like TTs. You know what I mean?
Twice I saw a beautiful girl on the golf course. Twice. And I play a ton of golf. I'm playing golf all the time. And I think your kids should play golf. I think it's a very good thing to get into. But those hotties are not out on the golf course. They're not. I'm telling you that right now. I'm not trying to be anyone's motivation. I'm just letting you know that. It's
what are they called? Heidi's?
I just said hotties, but we can start calling them Heidi's. No, maybe we should. There you go. They're Heidi's. That's like the hot girl in the golf thing is a Heidi. Right? Like you have like a Karen is the bitch at CVS making a big deal. The Heidi's a hottie on the golf course.
Well, I'm trying to think if there's any beautiful golfers.
I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
well,
there's some. I mean, yes,
there are.
Anyway, not to get off on a tangent, we don't need to, but yeah,
those pretty
but
female golfers.
Yes, they just happen to not go to your course, dude. That's
like I don't go to a nice enough course. That's probably the problem. I don't have enough
It
money to go
doesn't
where
matter.
the Heidi's hanging
Does
out.
not matter. Yeah,
Yes.
it does not matter.
I was just watching A League of Their Own the other day, and I'm like, hey, even if my daughter was Marla Hooch, I'm happy because like they're passionate about something.
Yeah.
Who was
You know what I
Marla
mean?
Hooch? Was that Rosie O'Donnell?
What a hitter! No, Marla Hooch was the second baseman.
Yeah.
Who was the one that like
Got
her
traded?
dad raised her to be like a boy
Right.
because the mother wasn't around, and so he coached the local boys team.
Yep.
And she was the switch hitter.
Right.
And she
Crazy talented.
it was a great. I love that movie.
That's a good movie.
I've always heard for parents, this kind of a question because it seems like that's what Joe's doing is, and my mom, and we talk about this later of like, we just needed to expose you to stuff. Like that's what
my mom did.
Yeah.
Put me in everything. I did tap,
You
I
have
did
to.
jazz, I did everything.
Just to see and then kind of keep what you want, just like, oh, you like that? Cool. Let's keep doing that to whatever our financial means can do or whatever, something reasonable. And then anything you don't like, cool, get rid of it. Like,
It's funny because I'm a stand-up comedian, but my parents didn't facilitate that.
True. Yeah.
If I look back at how I was behaving as a teenager, it was all the signs of stand-up comedian, right?
Yeah.
And my mom, I used to do jokes about it, and she gets upset when I say it. She's like, "That's not true," and I'm like, "It's 100% true." She'll just lie right now. It's 100% true. I would go down in the basement with a microphone hooked into a guitar amp. I played guitar, and I still play, and I would just start being a goofy, like I was a stand-up comedian. I was doing shows alone in my basement on a microphone.
Nice.
I'd have my high school friends would sneak down the steps, and I didn't know they came down, and I'd be doing full-on comedy skits. They would all of a sudden pop their head up. My one friend would go, "You're weird."
Yeah, sounds all right.
I know.
And now I get it, and now I do it for a living.
Yeah, and I get paid
And my mom used to go, shut up down
Yeah.
there. She was just hated it.
You're weird. You're like, I'm going to be a weird adult who is weird in public. Not
There was
alone.
no like, oh, we should get this guy in an acting. Like now,
Yeah, you're being creative. You're creating something.
But I think that's the thing with kids and parents. Like, you have this misunderstanding. There's this general, like, I don't want to listen to you because you're the closest person to me. And like my daughter switched from baseball to deck hockey. I've never played deck hockey in my life. And I didn't even get upset about it. I was like, that's cool. I wanted her to be active and doing something. So now I'm out with the stick when she gets off the bus and I'm learning myself. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I'd never held a hockey stick in my life until 2 weeks ago. And now we're out in the driveway, like Wayne's World. Game on, the cars come, we game off.
I mean, you have all the fitness benefits too. Like all, you know what I mean? It's super.
Dude, and
super
I was so
important.
happy too because it was getting me active and back out there. And like, we were just having a great time. And I'm like, oh, it wasn't baseball. I set up in our basement. In my basement is a sock net, a tee. On one of the poles is a wraparound ball, like this old skill zone thing that pops back around. So during the pandemic, like I was full on, like in the very beginning, because I was playing adult league baseball too at that point. So and the girls would come down and they would hit, and then and now my daughter's like, I don't want to do it anymore. And she was so good, and she was like lefty.
She might come back,
and she's a 6-year-old, and I'm like, she's smacking it on.
Yeah,
but I had to let it go. I didn't make it a big deal. I was like, all right, I wish she was playing baseball. She's not, whatever,
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing, But
and don't let them quit in season. I think that's a big.
I read a book that the person said, hey, they made their kid see it through, not just the first season, but they made them go one more after that.
Oh, okay.
And what's the outcome of that?
We had a rule
that
for
it worked out well.
To like that. Well, to at least see it through, to be like, oh, the uncomfortableness, the fear. Let's push through that fear, and then give yourself a full year when you've put that behind you, just to really say, do I like it? Or like that's sort of how I started comedy, where I was like, is this just church league softball and I'm doing an open mic on a Tuesday night because it might be fun? Right. And to the point where I'm like, well, if you're going to do one open mic, you need to do 100. If you do 100 in a year, fine, then you can pursue this.
Right.
And then I, then I think that's important. But now selfishly, I want to ask one thing before we get into the mullets and mixtapes. So I want to talk about that briefly before we end. But so when you be on the road, can you talk a little bit about like with your wife and your kids and how, like, is there the pros and cons of that? Do you have any advice for someone? Because I'm on a tour this summer for the first time. I'm going to be away from home a good amount. I got small kids at home. I got a wife who's going to have all this extra labor. Like, do you have any advice?
It's so funny because think someone was just shitting on me somewhere, some troll, and like making fun of my gigs being all tri-state. And I'm like, you're making fun of that? Like, that's my goal. Like, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a dad. Like, I don't want to go to Iowa for a week. And I think I'd be divorced. Not to scare you, but
Yeah, no, but that's I asked for the the real answer.
This is me as a person. I notice when I leave, I adapt to my new surroundings. So when you're a comedian and you leave, especially if you're doing comedy clubs, it's like a boys club. You're with two other comics. You guys are hanging out. You're sleeping late. You're, going to see movies during the day. You're drinking after the shows. And then all of a sudden, a week later, you got to come back into and be a husband and a dad again. It would always take me like 5-6 days to get back into the flow. And my wife would want to kill me because while I was away, she had to do double duty. Like, I'll tell you this, my wife and I are getting along probably the best. She would say it too. Probably the best we've ever been getting along in our whole marriage right now. And I can tell you one little thing that I changed. And I was like, that's all it was getting up every day at 7 o'clock in the morning with her and helping her from 7 to 8 do everything that she was doing lots of times without me. Cause I used to like be doing comedy late at night and I couldn't wake up at 7 a.m. Or if I didn't have to drive my kids to school that day, cause I only take my daughter to or my son to school twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I could sleep in the other days if I wanted to. But now that I don't, and I'm just present and I'm there helping her, and I'm like, and making her life easier, because that's what happens is you go away as a comedian. Yeah. Your wife's like, you just went on to spring break. She's not treating you like you went away on a.
You're right. You're right. Working. Absolutely.
She thinks you just went and did, fuck off time, and you were drinking every night, and now you're back. So the other thing, what I was going to say, that I'm lucky, and my wife and I do this a lot now because she has to travel sometimes for her job because she does talks and all these different things. My wife's not a clinical psychologist. My wife does research on Alzheimer's disease.
Right? Oh, wow. So that she's going and showing off her work.
Yeah, they have to give talks and everything's grant driven. They have to try to get grants. They have to go to all these conferences and they're worldly. They're all over. So now her and I will sync it up. Like we're going to Amsterdam in July. And then we're going to go to Sicily, but I don't have any gigs in Sicily, but she doesn't have to do anything for her job in Sicily. We just, we have a friend who has a place there, and so we could stay there for free. And we're like, that's awesome. Fuck it, we're going.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm getting gigs in Amsterdam and stuff like that. But we've synced up in Hawaii before, where I've done gigs in Hawaii while she has to go to a conference in Hawaii, and we'll bring our kids with us.
Yeah.
So it's like when your kids get a little bit older, because if she's at a conference, she's out of commission from 8 a.m. till 5.
Yeah.
But my kids are a little bit older now. You get to the point where it's like I can go have fun with them during the day and take them to do shit. And then I'll do a comedy. Like we just went to another one we did. We went to the Miami area. I did gigs in Key West, this awesome club in Key West that a comedian I knew from Boston opened, called Comedy Key West, I think it's called. And then another one in Boca, this black box theater in Boca. I went there, and then my wife had a conference in Miami, and we synced it all up. So awesome. We're lucky like that. So I don't do the road a lot.
Yeah,
I just don't. I try to be. My thing is, and I have a friend like this who's really big in New England, right? He does all theaters in New England. He's always with his kids because all the gigs are in New Hampshire, Southern Maine, or sometimes in that Massachusetts area. So it's like every gig's an hour and a half away, and then he's back home.
That's hope. I'm hopeful for that because
he has a huge draw in those 3 states, and he just sells them out at all these theaters. So it's like these comedians, when I look at them, all these comics that are doing really well, You know, I'm not going to say names.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I see their schedule. I'm like every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then flying home on Sunday or Monday in a different. I'm like, I did that when I was younger. I hated it. That's why I always wanted the wife and the kids. I'm like, I like being here. I like being with them. I said to I think since COVID, because my wife doesn't even have to go into the office anymore. She works from home every day, but 1 day a week she goes into Manhattan.
Yeah.
I go, can you believe we're around each other this much and it's made our marriage better?
Right.
Wow.
That's great.
That's
like,
that's a really
I
fucking
guess
good
I'm
point.
lucky. I'm like, I mean, but I guess that's how it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to marry somebody you hate.
Right.
That's true. That's right.
And
You wanna
avoid,
let
you're
them
not
in the
supposed to
club.
avoid them. I mean, yeah, you got to create a home. You got to create a life with a family.
Yep.
No, and it's like when I hear these stories, when my wife will tell me about her friends that are getting divorced, and I hear what the husband just says, I'm like, this guy doesn't even sound like he's trying at all. I'm like, I don't realize how good I am. I'm like, I will fucking try. I go, I guess I am better than I realize it because I will try so hard to make this work, especially when you have kids. Like
exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm exhausted. My eyes are ready to shut. But I was like, today was so important to get back for that game, and so I don't want to sacrifice a lot of that. And I'm hopeful. My wife's a teacher, so since we're gonna be all summer, I'm hopeful that they can come on the road with me or at least meet me. So on that in between, we can make little mini vacations out of it because that's my goal. My goal.
How
was
long are you going away?
So most of the end of June through like the first week of August, but I do get like a week, 2 weeks in July that are off, not consecutive, but like, but yeah, so it's like 26 shows, 7 states, 13 cities, and like
how are you getting to all of them?
So that's all taken care of by the tour manager or whatever.
Are you on a tour bus or are you like?
So it's like they'll rent an Escalator, like because there'll be 4 of us. There'll be 4 comedians. So they'll have a guy with like a big Sprinter or something like that. So they'll fly us to the hub city. Now
with technology, man, things are a lot easier. Like when I used to try to do that, there was no FaceTime and all that stuff.
Well,
like,
that's just it.
Do it.
That's what they did last night. Like my daughter, I had a show in Baltimore at the Lyric, and it was the same time my daughter was going on for piano recital. And so like we were able to FaceTime each other before we both went on. And then my wife was able to send me the video right after. And then I could FaceTime her after and tell her how great it was. So like, yeah, you could bridge that gap, but like, like, missing a lot. I'm still missing some stuff, but it's like, you gotta pick those battles because at the same time, like they want to see the best version of their dad, and I want to let them see the world, and I think this would be a cool way. So, I
know Jim Brewer does a lot of that. Brings his wife and kids with him on tours, and they go on a tour. But if you're going to be on a bus and you can bring them, that'll be so fun.
Well, that would be fun. Hey, if 5-10 years from now it's going well, my hope would be that we're like, doing something like that, especially in the summers when they're, not in school. Yeah.
One of the greatest time. Another comedian opened a club in Aruba. Doesn't pay that much, but you get put up in Aruba.
Yeah,
and you can you can bring your wife and kids with you. I mean, and like the flights weren't that bad, so we went. My kids that might have been the greatest trip ever, and they're like, "When are we going back?" I'm like, "I don't know. I can't."
Yeah, that's a push. Like that's great. If I get a push in the money and we got a vacation out of it, you know what I mean? Like cruise ships, stuff like that.
You just start seeking them out when if you want to be a good dad, you go. I'm going to go find the gigs where I can bring them.
Yeah.
Like, dude. I don't do cruises anymore. There was a time where they would let you bring your family and they would eat and have a free cruise. Can you imagine that? They could stay with you in your room and they just stopped.
That's great. Paul Lyons. Do you know Paul Lyons at all?
Yeah, I know him.
So he's coming on in a couple weeks, and I met him, and I was like, "Oh my god!" He's like, we're trying to match up for the pre-interview, and he's like, "Oh, I'm on cruises nonstop." So I don't think he has a scenario where he's bound down by anything right now. So
no, cruises are the most depressing gig you will ever have if you're a dad, because now you're in other countries where you can't. Well, I mean, now again, technology has changed it a little bit. When I did cruises, you couldn't even talk to I'd go 7-8 days without talking to my wife and kids.
Yeah,
it was like,
crazy.
It sucked. I was like, this
blows.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so I want to segue into, I want to talk about your special before we wrap up to give you time to kind of promo, because I love the concept, mullets and mixtapes, and then it's, you know, the from when we talked, I really enjoyed the set setup. Can you talk to us a little bit about like sort of how the show came to be?
Well, it's funny from talking to you, and as you just said it out loud, this is probably the first podcast I've been on where I'm promoting it because it's not out yet. And I would, you know, I have a publicist and a social media person right now that my manager is paying for. And that's how I got on your podcast. Actually, this guy, John Bleacher, got me on this, and we were trying to wait, you know, to do all the promo when the special's out, but it's like it's taken a lot longer to edit and get done. So it's like it's not done yet. And I'm like, well, I need to start getting on things anyway. So
yeah,
I'll be really teasing this. But as you said, mullets and mixtapes, it's funny how you start to realize things when you perform it. That the concept is more about me growing up in the 80s, being in high school in the 80s, and my son growing up now in 2023, and the differences. And the stage looks like my bedroom in the 80s on one side of the stage and my son's bedroom now. You know, he's got the dual monitors and the white Crocs on the ground with a hoodie. But, you know, and what else? One of those Oculus things is on his desk. All that stuff. And there's like a boom box on my side and like, you know, all those posters that we had on our walls and stuff like that. Then I have a big, huge LED wall on the screen, and I'm able to project pictures while I'm talking about different things. Like an example would be gym class, you know, and how we didn't care about hurting anybody's feelings when we grew up.
Bombardment
and how we pick teams and like the whole bit, you know, and and I say that we would pick kids by their ailments, because the really athletic kids were the captains, and they would pick all the other athletic kids, and I go, there's a slew of losers left, right?
That one table at the wedding, you know. It's like,
and I show pictures of all these things. I show the kid with asthma. I go, you get asthma. I'm like, no, I had asthma last week. It's your turn to have asthma. Then I go, all right, fine. You get asthma. If I get asthma, you got to take eye patch. And then you see, it's actually me. You see a picture of me on the big screen with an eye patch because I had the eye patch when I was a kid. That's how they would try to fix the lazy eye in the 70s is the eye patch. Then I get really mean and I go, then that last pick was that kid who had the leg that was longer than the other leg.
With the
they
big
would
shoe.
give him that big shoe. And I show the big shoe, the big Frankenstein boot. But that's basically it. Almost makes when I saw you start to gravitate towards your son and you growing up, you know, and comparing it back and forth, it made me think the title really shouldn't be mullets and mixtapes, because those are both things from the 80s. It should be mullets, mixtapes, and like something that he has. It's funny because it's not out yet, so it's not like I
could change that.
That would be cool. That'd be great if we saw that it evolved. That's because you're right. Because I love that connect. Because in your head, as you were explaining it, I'm thinking in my head, I took the girls to Disney finally for the first time. My wife made me wait. I love the carousel of progress, and so I'm thinking as you're describing the set, it sounds to me like a cool age version of like the carousel of progress. Have you guys ever been on? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I have no.
Have you never been to Disney?
No, I've never been to fucking Disney.
I've been to Disney since I was 15 or something.
So this ride has not changed since then, I promise you. And it's like you get on and it's just this carrot. You're in it's like a theater, but it's a theater that's on the round and it rotates. And it's a family going from like the 1900s.
I do remember that.
Through what would have been the 2000s, but they've never quite updated it yet. Right. So it's like things that we were like, yeah, that happened like 30 years ago, but it's still the end of the ride. Whereas like you were like this, I'm seeing this modern version of it where now it's finally been updated. So it's like, I think that's such a cool, because that's what I loved about it. I love seeing the evolution of things. And like, I can't wait to see this just for that because I love that. And
Well-
as a teacher who thinks about what was it like when I was a student, gym class and some of those things, I mean, how relatable. We've all been there. We all remember that. That's
Yeah.
going to be cool.
That's the hardest part about doing that show is it touches people's memories so much while I'm doing it. They start talking to each other during the show.
Oh shit, because they went down memory lane.
Up. I'm not done yet.
That's what I noticed last time with the teacher shows too, because it's so relatable and they're like, oh my God, you remember how we were talking about, like, yeah, not now, Susie.
In Long Island, they talk a lot. I've noticed that. It's like you're in England or something. I'm like, you guys talk after the show? Not all. It's still going on.
Yes. We don't remember what it's like to be together again. I'm like, you guys are not on mute right now. Like, come on. Like,
No.
yeah.
Long Island is always, it's that Governor's Club. I love working there, but it's always had a boisterous crowd to it a little bit.
Yeah, they were rowdy. It was fun. We had I mean,
I have fun too.
But I love the chaos of it. I do. I love, because that's how teaching is. Like, if you think these kids are sitting in a row, quiet, raising their hands, like that's not the reality. Learning's messy, and I think that's so that for me, I kind of like that chaos because it means you've engaged them. Like it's not like they're talking over you like it's a bar show and they're trying to watch the TV and they're annoyed. It's that they're very engaged in what is happening.
That's why it doesn't throw me like back in the days before I was on meds, and I was like a loose wire. I would
Text message the coach.
Yeah. Like now you make sense of the situation. You're like, well, they're talking because they're enjoying it. They're not talking because it's not. You notice the difference between them talking because they're not engaged and they think you're boring versus, oh my God,
1000%.
Two different conversations.
And I can tell that with the kids in the classroom. I can know because right now they're doing a project. Half the time we're doing the boring stuff we got to do because of the curriculum. And then the other half, I've given them all $1,250 to plan a trip with their other their other group mates. And they had to pick a country and they have to see how long they can stay in that country with each of them having $1,250. And so now they're like going through TripAdvisor and all of those and trying to do all the logistics that their parents have to do to say, oh, well, we're flying out of JFK. Well, how are you getting to JFK? Oh, I don't know. And so it's fun to watch them be engaged. And it's not like this, like, if somebody walked in, it would look like chaos, but like it's beautiful chaos. It's like, and I love that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about that. So you don't know when you're going to be dropping this. Actually, it'll be interesting because we could probably correlate that with when this episode
we can
drops.
Yeah, my manager's just starting. He wants to sell it, and I told him you're not going to be able to sell it. I'm a very negative person. I know the reality of the game. I know too much. Yeah. I'm like, you're not selling it. I sold my first comedy special that I shot myself and had funding. I had an investor the first time. The second one, I spent my own money and I just put it right on YouTube. And this one, my manager paid for the whole special himself, and we shot it pretty high end. That's just what I described. I mean, you won't believe how much it costs to rent one of those LED walls that are like 20 feet wide for a day. For a day. Just to rent that and then get somebody to design the stage and all that shit. Yeah. So it was an expensive product, and he wants to really sell it. But I'm like, all right, go ahead. I mean, I have a contract with him. He gets 4 months to try to sell it. But
okay.
I'm like, you only need 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Where are you selling it? Like, I don't want you. It's not gonna. Where do you see comedy specials? HBO Max.
Yep.
And
Prime, Netflix,
and Prime. Maybe there's 3 places. I go everywhere else. I'm saying I don't even want them to buy it. I'm like, who's gonna watch it on? I want eyes on.
Yeah, is Tubi the other one? I've seen.
There's a ton of free stuff. Yeah, there's a ton of free stuff. Yeah.
Well, good. Hey, I can't wait. Regardless, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Well, real quick though, the thing I kind of want to do now that the special is shot, because I realized after I shot it and started thinking about it, because I really wanted it to be very one-man show like, but we made it very stand-up joke driven for the comedy special. So now I want to do a one-man show version of it that isn't like jokes, like a stand-up comedian. I want to play me now, me then in the 80s, and my son now. I want to play all 3 parts. So you get to see, it's almost like Neil Brennan did that 3 mics, but I want to do a non-stand-up version, more an acted out version where I play, me now.
That's pretty cool. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. And then, jamming it all together, because I've had the acting bug for a long time, and I've gotten to do it a little bit, but it's really what my passion is, and I'm giving my kids shit for not chasing their dream.
There it is. That's awesome,
Yep.
dude. That's the thing. That's the thing too. Like I want my kids to see me be the best version of myself and do all the things. And hey, this is a risky thing that I've started here, and now it's like my wife. I told my wife, I'm like, you're co-signing this. You're letting me do this nonsense, but I think it's going to be good because my daughters, I want them to see that. I want them to see me too, and they're going to. But I think it's important for them to see us, follow our dreams, because I got to put your money where your mouth is.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
I can't thank you enough for coming on. This was so great. And it was crazy to see you last night. It's great to see you virtually. Yeah, man. Al, do you have any final?
Nah, man, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I can't wait for the special to come out. And thanks for being here, brother. It was very nice talking to you.
Thanks for having me, and good luck with your marriage. It sounds like you're marrying into a good family. Nice.
You're already married. I'm joining a good family.
I was good luck because I'm going to be getting divorced. I thought that's what he was telling me.
Oh, no, he's saying good luck to me because I'm
Seriously, Dad.
Thank you for listening to the Dads, for once. Give these daddies a break. And maybe follow, subscribe, like, and comment to the Dads on Instagram and YouTube at Seriously Dad Pod. Rate and review Seriously Dad Podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Seriously, Dad.
How you doing? This is Neil Wood from the Cult of Us podcast, speaking on behalf of Drop 10 Media Network, the network you're currently listening to. Make sure to check out all the other podcasts on the network. You can go to drop10.com to check them all out. Make sure to like, subscribe on everything that you see Drop 10 on. We appreciate it. Go to drop10.com now.
This has been a Drop 10 Media Production.